Welcome to the DRC Insight Technology Training for setting up alternative sites for in-person testing. This training will cover the steps that technology coordinators can take to prepare sites that are not typically used for testing. We're only going to be covering addressing the technology setup and readiness topics. We are not going to be addressing any of the health or safety guidelines for setting up alternate sites. So let's start by reviewing high level the types of sites that you may need to prepare for online testing using DRC Insight. You of course have your typical, what you're used to, setting up your typical school buildings for online testing. What we're talking about really are these two high level scenarios where you're going to be asked to set up a testing in a alternate site that's still on your network. So an example might be in a district office building where you want to have students test from there, given that you're going to need proper social distancing and needing some additional space. The other alternate site is where they may not be on the network, so like a community center or a library. There's a lot of things to consider, but the two main things we're going to talk about or address today are really the differences between these sites when it comes to the network and when it comes to delivering content. So we're going to walk through these in more detail as we go through to kind of things that to consider as we go through this. So for setting up technology in an alternate site that's on your network, there isn't as much you need to do from an overall change to the environment. Just 2 seconds to refresh everyone as to what the terminology I'm going to be using is. The COS configurations are what ties a testing device to where it gets its content. So in this case, these testing devices are in a configuration where the content is coming from a COS service device. In these configurations where you're on network, those sites are typically going to be able to have the same type of access that you have within your typical traditional classroom settings. So accessing the COS service device is okay. They still will be able to get the content there. So there really is no need to modify the COS configurations or the testing devices in this scenario. The biggest thing you're going to want to spend some time on is just verifying that network. If you noticed on the previous slide where I showed the side by side, you're running on your network, but it's really it's not been something that you used before, so it's in a sense unproven. So you want to run through the DRC Insight site technology readiness checklist. You should be doing this for any site that you're testing, but pay particular attention to the network configuration activities. These are things you're going to want to do to verify. The other thing you're going to want to do, regardless of whether it's on network or off network, is you're going to be testing using testing devices that have probably been in a remote learning environment, and you're going to need to spend a little bit of time getting them ready for in-person testing. And so there's a couple things that you're going to want to do in terms of just verifying that they're running the most current version of the DRC Insight Secure application, that it's installed and things are up to date, and that they also have any other software and operating system updates that would normally happen on your network are all taken care of. But you don't want is students coming in, plugging into the network for the first time in a while and have a bunch of software updating. That is going to conflict with their testing experience. So we want to make sure all that is done on these devices in advance. And there's just a couple other things, just a reminder to make sure that when you're preparing testing devices, that other software that's running in the background has all been disabled so that, again, there's no interruption with the testing device. So again, on your network, it's really spending time verifying that all the things are going to be working from that alternate site before students show up. There's a little bit more you're going to need to do or consider for testing from an alternate site that's not on your district network. What students won't have access to with these testing devices when they bring them into that facility is they won't be on the network, so they aren't going to be able to access the COS service device via the network. So what we're going to need to do is go in and turn content hosting off, which disables the COS service device, so that these testing devices, when they launch, will appear as there's no COS service device, and that content will then come from DRC. So the main thing we're going to need to do is go in and update the COS configuration to turn off content hosting. And in most cases, you will not have to touch those testing devices, other than what I referred to earlier about making sure they have the current software on them. So this is, we'll walk through that process. So again, you're going to want to walk through, from a network standpoint, the site technology readiness checklist, paying particular attention to, again, those network configuration setup activities in the checklist. And there's also at the end of the checklist, and I'll show you this in a minute, specific information for when you're testing students at an alternate site. It's labeled consolidating students attending virtual or online schools, or for multiple districts. But what this scenario is in the checklist is you're setting up a site that's not on the network, and how do you do that? So we'll be able to leverage things that are in the checklist specifically around setting up these sites that you'll be able to use. And again, we'll walk through that in a second. So we have kind of two options to consider when we're looking at this, the changes we're going to need to make. If all the testing devices that are in this configuration are all going to be testing at the alternate site. So it's these 3 students are in the configuration, and all 3 of these students are going to be testing at the alternate site. It's a lot more straightforward in what we need to do to turn off content hosting, and we'll walk through that. We'll also walk through briefly the scenario where you may have multiple students in the configuration. Some will be testing in a traditional site, and some will be testing in the alternate site. And we're talking about how to actually update a COS configuration to allow that, so you don't have to touch the devices. The main goal here is to try to make this as straightforward as possible, so you're not having to change the software configuration on any of the devices. And we'll walk through both of these options. I'm not going to go through this again, but just for the sake of continuity, these are the same steps we walked through earlier around making sure devices are ready. It's going to be the same process whether the site is on network or off network. So let's talk about the more straightforward scenario where we're going to actually have all the testing devices now be in the configuration be used at this alternate site. And so to do that, we're going to go into the DRC Insight portal, go to the Central Office Services application, and we're going to get to the dashboard. And then this is where we're going to actually see our list of configurations. So this configuration here, this is what I'm going to use to turn off content hosting. So this is where all these testers are in this configuration are going to be at an alternate site. So I'm going to click on that configuration, and when I do that, it's going to open up. It's going to actually default open up to the configuration information tab. What we want to do is just go over to the content hosting tab. We're going to click on disable content hosting. And now, even though this configuration may have COS service devices, they will not be used. And all the students now will pull their content from DRC. So there's nothing you need to do on that one. So this is a really straightforward option. If you have a mixed environment where you have some testing devices that are going to be in a configuration that are going to be in a traditional setting and some at an alternate site off network, we're going to want to create another configuration. And why we want to do that is you want those testing devices that are still on your network to still be able to leverage a COS service device. It's going to give students a much better student experience. So what we're going to do is create another configuration, and we're going to move testing devices from the existing configuration that you're going to use for the traditional classroom or school setting. And we're going to move those testing devices to a configuration that's only going to be used by students at the alternate site. So we're going to click up here on Add New Configuration. When we do that, we're going to get a brief wizard to create a new configuration. So we're going to first give it a name. We're then going to turn on enable auto updates. So if during the testing window there are any updates to the DRC Insight Secure applications, they will pick them up. You're going to identify your program. So in this case, we're using the DRC's demo environment called Showcase. So I'm going to add in the Showcase testing program. I'm going to put in my district name or site for that alternate site, and I'm going to click Add Site. And now this is a configuration that has your testing program in it. Now you'd be using your testing program, and it will now be used for that alternate site. So we're going to click Add, and then we're going to go back to the configuration information page, and we're going to see this new organizational unit number. And this is now the organizational unit number that we're going to want to use. So remember that number. The next step we're going to do is go into the configuration that has all of those testing devices in it. And we're going to want to move those testing devices out of the configuration that's going to be used for the traditional classroom or school building setting on network. And we're going to move them over to this new configuration so that all those testing devices are going to be now used with the alternate site. So go into the configuration you want to move the testing devices out of, select the testing devices you want to move, select Move, enter in that org unit ID. That's the one that for the new configuration we just created, and click Move. And now all those testing devices have moved over. As an alternative to actually going into the COS configuration and moving testing devices from one COS configuration to another, you have the option of using software distribution and pushing out the configuration file to the testing devices at the alternate site. So in order to do that, again, we're still in the new configuration that we created. And here's the organizational unit ID for that. We're going to just create a deployment script. So we're going to click Deploy. We're going to go to this. It's going to show your testing program. Download the configuration, and then that is what you would deploy out to testing devices. More information on how to actually distribute that is in the DRC Insight Technology User Guide Volume 3. So just some additional resources that I've referred to. This is the Site Technology Readiness Checklist. It is should be posted on all of your DRC Insight portal general information downloads documents tab. And this is the section I referred to. It's at the very end. You probably haven't paid that much attention to it in the past, but it is something that we can use for setting up an alternative testing site for this scenario. So this is the section you're going to want to use. I still recommend you go through the rest of the document as you're preparing your site, in addition to these additional tips. We do have another document that's specifically around network configuration that you may want to use for these, specifically for the testing sites that are not on network. It goes into a little bit more detail on the network verification than what's in the Site Technology Readiness Checklist. One additional tool that you should look at, especially for these new sites that you haven't tested on before, is the Site Capacity Estimator. This gives you a really good idea of what the student experience is going to be given the number of students you plan to be testing at the same time at that site. So you indicate where content is. If it's if it's off network, you're going to click on this is the content's going to come from DRC. How many students are going to be testing at the same time? What the actual network configuration is for that alternate site, and then you can kind of get a good idea of what the student's experience is going to be, and really understand how many concurrent testers that site's going to be able to handle. So this is a really useful tool that we really recommend that you leverage for the alternate site. To wrap it up, please contact DRC customer service if you have any questions about setting this up, configuring it, or verifying your alternate site. To get access to, if you don't have those numbers for customer service or their email contacts, please check your DRC Insight portal page for those phone numbers and the emails. Again, don't hesitate to give us a call. We're here to help you. So With that, that wraps up what we're talking about today. And if there's any additional questions, please let us know through DRC customer service. Thank you.